Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of Shirim, the Torah of Recovery with the Light Revealed. And in Parshas Korach, we're going to encounter a fundamental point of encounter that is going to determine how we function in this world. Function in the day-to-day, function in the moment-to-moment. But Korach, far from representing some argument that took place a long time ago, it represents a fundamental reality that we have to confront in the paths of our lives as we develop ourselves. That Korach represents a station. It represents a place in the mind, in the heart, in experience and existence. And this argument between Korach and Moshe is not something that takes place between two separate things, but rather it's something that is perpetually taking place within the individual. In the light of the Balatanya's call to live with the times, to find our light illuminated by the narrative of the Torah, with an understanding that every level of interpretation remains true, and by deepening our psychological awareness of what the Torah is telling us, we're not minimizing from the pshat orientation, but rather we're speaking to the depths of our soul. We're speaking towards the medicinal place that we need the Torah to speak to. The Torah is a pharmacy, and every parsha and every pasuk offers us a deep medicine. As Chazal tell us that if it were not for the Chet HaEgel, every single word of Torah would be revealed in its full capacity to be Mechayim Mesim, which means that there is an inherent quality to the Torah, which is a Sam HaChayim. It's a medicine of life. It's an elixir of life. It can heal a person. Now, yes, obviously, in order to be healed, a person has to operate with the requisite understanding that there's a sickness that needs to be healed. In the aspect of Lulei Sarascha Sha'ashuai Azavaditi Bioni, that if it were not for this notion of being lost in my impoverishment at any moment that I'm not treating myself, only then can a person come upon the medicinal quality of the Torah and the Torah's capacity to be Mechayim Mesim Barachamim Rabin. And so we're not denying, God forbid, any other level of interpretation, but we're speaking directly to the soul encounter with the self and the vicissitudes of the self and trying to overcome itself through itself to reveal that itself is something that is far beyond itself. We give ourselves permission to uncover the illuminated space of the inner spiritual recovery-oriented benefits that the Torah HaKadosha is offering to us. Now, who was Korach? What is Korach? What's taking place in the process of Korach? What's this argument that Korach finds himself in with Moshe? What's the punishment of Korach in the opening up of a new creation of an empty space, a void that did not exist previously, so that Korach can truly be punished properly? What is all of this, and what does all of this mean to us in terms of our inner spiritual process? Now, part of the issue of what Korach did is that Korach split. Vayikach Korach, the pasuk says, and the Targum Onkelos and all the Meforshim already point out, in the Zohar HaKadosh and the Yerushalmi utilizes this interpretation as well to show that V'ispalig, that Korach came along and created a split. He created a fissure. There was something that was previously whole, and Korach came along and created a plugsa in it. He created a point of contention and a point of separation in it. What is it? What is it that Korach split? What is it? What fissure? What crack did Korach create at the foundational unity of things that resulted in such a cataclysm on a collective level as well as an individual level? And when we look at the splitting that Korach engaged in, we see that by way of the motivations that Korach was urged by, we can understand exactly what he didn't understand. Korach wanted to be closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Korach wanted to find his rightful place at the head of the system. Korach was a person who was directly rooted in the undying desire of self-perpetuation and moving of oneself upwards along the rungs of spiritual growth, personal growth, in moving upwards. And as a result of that, Korach understood a deep question. Korach understood something very deep. What Korach understood was, why are we operating in a hierarchical system? Why are we operating in a place of closeness and distance when everybody should be equally close? Everybody should be equally unified with the light of calmness, with the light of goodness, with the light of the infinite. Each and every person, in accordance with their understanding, has the ability to be like Moshe Rabbeinu, and therefore there should be a negation of the boundaries and a negation of the separation. I should perpetually be only in a place of closeness. I should always feel that if closeness is an option, then closeness is the orientation that my life should take on. And all of the synonyms that comes with closeness and hiskarvus, all of those easy ways of functioning, the clarity of the mind, the illumination of the mind. the ease in which a person has the capacity of seeing God in their lives, seeing hashkacha in their lives, seeing divine providence in their lives, where things are easy, eyes open. If I can have that experience, then I should have that experience at all times. That was Korach's taina. That if at the very fabric of existence there rests a hidden secret that is only ready to be revealed in the future, which is the secret of Tzaddik Katam Yifrach, that Korach was correct to a certain degree, but it was not correct in the time that he wanted to express it or in the way that he wanted to express it. But if Korach had a deep understanding of the ultimate unity of all things and the closeness of all things with all that is right and good in the world, and the inherent unity at the heart of all things, and the inherent goodness and the ease at the heart of all things, then that should be the typical model of day-to-day functioning, moment-to-moment functioning. It should be easy. It should be close. And so Korach sees this reality and he says, I want to be as close as Moshe. I want to come along and be as close as Moshe is to the infinite source. I want to feel as at the head of things. I want to feel perpetually connected in the way that Moshe Rabbeinu was perpetually connected. And as a result of this desire to be close, as a result of this desire to feel connected, as the result of this addiction to being on point or along the right path or feeling connected or feeling illuminated, Korach revealed the true misunderstanding at the heart of his demand. And the true understanding at the heart of his demand was that Korach felt that when one is distant from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when one is distant from the light, when one is distant from what their soul needs, that means that they're out of the game. That means that they're not connected. That means that they're not plugged in. Korach saw the brilliant illumination of the promise of spiritual proximity and spiritual connectivity and closeness and unity. And once he saw that, he came to feel that the moments of spiritual distance, the moments of concealment, the moments of being behind and not in front, the moments of being far away, of rachok, that those things were outside of the realm of my spiritual process. And that is what it means when we say that Korach came along and was ispalig. What was he creating a split in? He was creating a split within human experience, because prior to Korach's claim that I need to be close in order to be connected, and when I'm far, I'm not connected, the assumption was that Hashem is everywhere. Hashem can be found everywhere. When I'm close and when I'm far, Hashem is always present, but it's just a question of my orientation towards it. Comes along Korach and he says, no, if closeness is a possibility, then that's what I want at all times. That's what I want to experience. And anything other than closeness, by definition, means that I'm losing. It means that I'm out of the game. If I feel far, it's because there's an issue. And if there's an issue, then it means that I'm not doing the thing that I need to be doing. And if I'm not doing the thing I need to be doing, I need to find some way to quickly escape the state of mind or the state of being that I find myself in. And therein lies the danger and the technological advancements that a person will tap into in order to extricate themselves from an uncomfortable situation where they feel disconnected. That's the origination of addiction, is a definitive act that is going to shift the way I feel about myself. And an addiction to that process of leaving that state of distance and coming into a state of closeness, that place of discomfort and coming into a place of comfort. If I feel that anytime that I feel far, that I'm disconnected and I'm out of the game and that there's nothing actually there, then I am going to fall in love and become addicted to anything that is going to take me out of that place and place me in a place of a feeling of connection. Korach's mistake, the split that Korach makes, is that instead of understanding the true secret, which is that Hashem reveals himself in two ways in a person's life. Hashem reveals himself by way of closeness, and Hashem reveals himself by way of distance. That distance is not the absence of a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Distance doesn't mean that I'm no longer connected to that which is most significant in my life. Rather, distance means that Hashem has decided that the way that I encounter him in this moment in my life right now is going to be by way of distance. Korach felt that distance meant absence. The tikkun of the Chet of Korach means that distance simply implies a different way of relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which will then allow me to reorient how I think about all of those moments of difficulty and concealment and distance in my life. Life is a mixed bag. Life is moments of closeness and distance. There is no closeness without distance, and just as there is no distance without a sense of closeness. That is what composes the perpetual dance, the in and the out, the Ratzav V'Shov, the running and the returning, the Chachma and the Bina, the Moshe and the Aharon, the above and the below of human experience. Both of them are reflective of the singular unity that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals into reality, which expresses itself in our minds and in our subjective orientation to the day-to-day experience as Avdei Hashem, as servants of God, as those who are attempting to draw light down from an infinite higher power into the broken bones of this worldly experience. It's a mixed bag. It has moments of closeness and moments of distance. But God forbid, like Korach, to make the mistake to think that if I'm distant, I'm not connected. Connection is always present, which means that distance isn't the opposite of connection. It is a form of connection by way of distance itself. And Korach made the mistake of thinking, okay, if there's closeness and there's distance, then I need closeness at all times because distance is losing and distance is being outside of it. While Korach should have truly understood the true secret, which is that, yes, I want to be close as much as I can be close. And I want to do everything in my power to be close in all of the ways that I'm capable of doing it. To do that which was within my power, to draw about proximity and connectivity to the goals of my life, to my higher power. But when I'm powerless and when there's nothing else that's left to be done, and I find myself in a state of distance, how am I going to look at it? Am I going to be like Korach, who denies the viability of finding God within a place of distance, therefore denying any reasonability of being in distance and always only searching closeness? Or like Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to teach Klal Yisrael, and what Hashem wants all of us to understand is that it's specifically within richuk and distance that a person is going to come to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a new way, in a way that is impossible for a person to reach in a state of closeness. As the Baal Tanya teaches us, that when redemption arrives, we're going to yearn for the graspability of God that we experienced in states of concealment, in states of exile. And the miracle of Hashem, as we're going to see, is that he's going to enable us to experience the benefits of exile without experiencing the negative elements of exile, that there will always be an element of exile at the heart of redemption, perpetually driving me to uncover more and more redemption, and the secret of somethingness and nothingness together. But Korach's misunderstanding was the split that he made between connection and disconnection. He split. He said connection is the realm of where one finds God, and disconnection is where one is absent from God. And that's a total heretical mistake, that closeness is a time of being close to God by way of closeness, and distance is a way of being close to God by way of distance. Me'rochok Hashem nirali. Hashem appears to me from afar, not in spite of being afar, but specifically through the lens of being far. That me'rochok Hashem nirali, as the tzaddikim say, this is an orientation, a lens of existing and experiencing Hashem by way of richuk. It's not an absence of closeness, and therefore we just settle for the distance, even though there's nothing to be found there, but rather if I find myself in a state of distance, that in and of itself is the way that I am meant to encounter HaKadosh Baruch Hu at this point. Rachok mimeni menachem meshiv nafshi, as the pasuk in Eicha says, that the Redeemer of my soul, the comfort of my soul is far from me. And one of the ways of reading that is that rachok mimeni, when I come to understand that something is distant from me, and that's why I'm feeling the way I feel. And I understand that I cultivate distance as a full-on spiritual experience of finding God in the apparently absent places of him from my experience in life. It's specifically there where I uncover Menachem Meshiv Nashi, that I will come to find the comfort, because now I don't have to run forward into the head of the line. I don't have to be the name on the ticket. I don't have to be Moshe Rabbeinu in order to be valuable. I can be Korach and I can still be valuable, which is why the name Korach is the osios of Rachok. Because the tikkun of Korach, as we understand, as we said last week, with shlach, chalash, and lachishu, and how those letter permutations really contain within themselves the very medicine that we need, and the secret of healing the sickness from within the cure itself, that the osios of tzara, of pain, are also the osios of ritzei, of desire, and the osios of nega, and pollution, and infection, are also the osios of oneg, and pleasure. And that's not some simple word game, but it's the depth of the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, that at the end of the day, all that we have is the irreducible residual ink of the letters themselves, the basic building blocks of the childhood self, the infantile self that only knows the Aleph Beis, that is perpetually only learning the Aleph Beis to come to understand the deep secret of what the Baal Shem Tov taught us, that in each and every letter, in the lowest possible expression of this worldliness, in the letters of our lives, the day-to-day experiences that we have, if we dig down deep into them, what we'll come to find is olamos, neshamos, ve'elikus, worlds, souls, and godliness, meaning to say that even in the richuk, even when all you know is the Aleph Beis, even when all you know is the letter permutations and playing around with letters like a child, in that place you can still uncover the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is close. And Korach, and the sin of Korach is the desire to be perpetually close, because there's a denial of the inherent value of a moment of distance with the awareness of godliness within that distance. The tikkun to that is coming to terms with the fact that me'rachok Hashem nirali, that the same letters are going to give me richuk, that richuk is the way that I come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Harchakos are a way of cultivating a deepening of an experience. That the light of godliness, the light of infinitude, is not something that is caught up within the limited economy of scarcity. It's not here and not there, or there and not here. It's everywhere at once. It just expresses itself in infinite ways because it is an infinitude that is indivisible, but yet the divisibility of the infinitude is fundamentally necessary so that divisible things can appear into existence so that we can engage with them. So the secret is drawing down the indivisibility of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite unity into the divisibility of existence and coming to find that it's still indivisible. Meaning, richuk and distance is not absence from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God forbid. It's a way of relating to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moichin dekatnus is not the absence of moichin. It is a way of experiencing HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the smallness of my mind. And the tikkun to the Chet of Korach is coming to understand the secret of that also when I'm meruchik from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the secret of Pesach Sheni, of B'derech Rechoika. A person uncovers a certain spiritual potency specifically by valuing the presence of that process of richuk. And that's the tikkun to Korach. And it's also the secret of the chirik, which is the specific nekuda, the chi, that simsum into a tiny, tiny place where I experience distance and closeness at once, the self and nothingness at once. Aniva ayin. It's what the Baal HaSulam refers to as the mesach, the chirik, the separation, the partition of the chirik, which is the osios of Korach and richuk. Because when I come to understand that the value of richuk is as fundamental to the power of kiruv, so then I come to find myself with Hashem wherever I am, even in the makomos rechokos. I never allow myself to feel that I'm absent from Hashem. I'm just experiencing Hashem by way of distance right now. Korach denied that, and as a result, Mida Keneged Mida, Korach was swallowed up by something that doesn't even exist. It had to be recreated for Korach because Korach felt that there was a place where Hashem is empty from, and therefore I have to run to a place where Hashem is full there. And that doesn't exist. So Hashem had to create a void which doesn't actually exist in existence because Korach, who created this notion of a void which doesn't actually exist, has to be punished, Mida Keneged Mida, which a void that doesn't actually exist. Hashem had to make a specific stipulation to create something that appears to actually be empty, in spite of the fact that even that's not empty, because we know that when we put our ears down to the ground, that we hear Moshe emes v'tzarasa emes. And as the Gemara teaches us, that it was Hahu Yishmaeli, Hahu Taya. That Arab donkey driver took the Yidden out into the depths of the desert in order so that they can bend their ears down to the ground so that they could hear Moshe emes v'tzarasa emes, which means that anytime there's a hisayrus through the klipa of Yishmael, that the klipa of Yishmael is ma'or, something within a person's mind, that it makes them go out into the midbar. Eretz Yisrael gets transformed into a midbar at that point, and a person feels like they don't have anything, and a person feels like things are falling back down. It's specifically there through that awakening that takes place through Klipas Yishmael that a person is able to put their ears to the ground of Eretz Yisrael and hear all that Eretz Yisrael has always been saying is Moshe emes v'sarasei emes. Moshe emes v'sarasei emes. Moshe is Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael is Moshe, because Moshe is what? Moshe is the knowledge that distance and closeness are both fundamentally reflective of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's expression. That is the depth of Moshe Rabbeinu's understanding. As Rabbi Nachman says, that Moshe Rabbeinu is the numerical value of 345, which stands wedged in between the number 346, which is the word of ratzon and desire, as well as the number 344, which is the language of shmad and heresy. That Moshe Rabbeinu was always above and below, elyonim and tachtonim, isha elikim, yada and lo yada, known and not known. Moshe Rabbeinu is the secret of the drawing down of the light of unity into the worlds of separation. It's a secret of Kel Shakai. Moshe Rabbeinu is this secret. Moshe Rabbeinu is the most ugly externally, as we know, but also the most beautiful internally, as we know. It's anava and godless b'makom echad. It's the desire to cultivate a relationship with Hashem by way of distance and by way of closeness. Moichin the godless and moichin the kadnos. To cultivate, not to get rid of the richuk. Yes, we always want to be perpetually overcoming richuk. That's what we mean when we say that Korach is wrong, in the sense that Korach is never higher than Moshe. Bina, distance, is never higher than closeness, which is chachma. But the sense of distance that comes about by way of Bina, which is the mesach the chirik, which is the tzimtzum that creates a separation between chachma and Bina, for the sake of coming back with a deeper awareness that even Bina and distance is part and parcel of the connectivity that we experience, that always drives us to be closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We always want to be closer. We don't have to be afraid that our desire to get closer is going to die down when we give ourselves permission to be okay when we feel distant. Because specifically in the distance, Mirachok Hashem nearly is where I'm going to be metakein this chet of Korach to mend the tear that Korach tried to create. Korach tried to create a tear in the fabric of Hashem's unity, which says that I'm only there when I'm close, but not when I'm far. And that's ispalig. That's the plugsa that Korach does, and that's a machloka shaloi l'shem shemayim. It's a machloka shaloi l'shem shemayim, because he separates between places of closeness and places of distance. And instead of saying Hashem is found in both places in different ways, he's saying Hashem is only found in the place of closeness, and a place of distance is bad, God forbid. And that's the secret of machlokas shaloi l'shem shemayim, that there's an inyan of machlokas in the world. There's an inyan of separation in the world. There is that mesach dechirik, which is the secret of richuk, which is the secret of distance, which Korach and his klipa tried to undo because he was afraid of the distance. He didn't believe that God could be found in the distance. Distance is a fundamental expression. It is the Gans totality of expression. It's by definition apparently distant from God. And we have to learn to cultivate the value of distance and proximity with the awareness of what machlokas is. Machlokas doesn't mean that they are two separate things which cannot integrate together. That's machlokas shalol l'shem shemayim. Shalol l'shem shemayim. And a machlokas like that will perpetually upkeep the division between things. Machlokas l'shem shemayim is the recognition that there can be a chiluk, but both of them relate to one another by way of machlokas itself. That there's a yichud b'derech haka'ah, that sometimes unification takes place when one thing fits properly into another, and that's a yichud b'derech kiruv, a yichud that comes about by the proximate connectivity between things. That's what Korach felt was the only place that Hashem could be found. And avada, we have to search for those moments with all of our power, but it cannot lead us to deny the value of the other side of connectivity, which is yichud by way of machlokas. Yichud, what is referred to by the Arizal as a batisha. A batisha is not when two things fit nicely together, but when two things hit each other in oppositional force, and the oppositional force creates a sparking and a frictional relationship that gives birth to a new energy, so to speak, that could not have been revealed other than by way of the friction and the hit, or that collision, rather, between these two oppositional forces. That yichud of batisha, that yichud of haka'ah, what it does is that in the imbalance, in the collision that pushes back against each side, resisting the sense of proximity, but rather sharpening the sense of distance, the encounter, the batisha, the haka'ah, the reality that there is splitness in reality, but that splitness is contained within original unity, not like Korach says, that there's a splitness that breaks an original unity, but rather the splitness perpetually reveals the greatness of the original unity, that it can continue to contain within itself all elements of splitness, which is the secret of Echad Shu Shtayim. Not what happens by Korach, which is Shtayim, that there was an Echad that gets split into Shtayim, but rather a Shtayim Shu Echad, that there's two that are really part of a one. That's the secret of Machlokas L'Shem Shamayim. Batisha appears to be an oppositional collision between two things that cannot be integrated together. The Shpaler Zeder, Rebbe Nachman, Chochma, Bina, all of the different forms of Machlokas in the world, Or and Klid, Simsum and Or. But in truth, in the very heart of the Machlokas and the Batisha itself, the collision, is born the renewed strength from each side to fully develop themselves to the point where it's eventually going to be revealed that they've both been part of the singular fundamental expression of proximity to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Even the distance is as significant as the kiruv. That's machlokas l'shem shemayim. Without that distance, there would be no machlokas of Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. There would be no existence. The entirety of existence is built upon the machlokas between Shammai and Hillel. Nasa adam nemu bravarecha. Nasa Adam, Nimlach in Shammai and Hillel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu looked towards the reality of Shammai and Hillel and said, I need this in order to create the world Kavyachal, the secret of Tzimtzum, the secret of the second day of creation, the secret of that machlokas, and why there's no tov hidden within the second day of creation, not because it's not good, but because the goodness that will emerge from it will only be apparent afterwards on the third day, with the third day of Tiferes, which is the Tov Ma'od, which is the unification of that which appears to be the opposite of good and the good in the very same connectivity. That's the secret of cultivating a mindset of a richuk, a kiruv b'derech richuk, a kiruv b'derech richuk, that there's a moichin dekatnus that is a ganz experience of moichin. And a machlikas l'shem shemayim is the recognition that avada there's a separation between chachma and bina, but it's always perpetually driving more of a shalom. It's always revealing more of the das of shalom, a bina that is always revealing chachma, a somethingness that is always revealing more and more bittul, an ego that is always revealing the source of the ego, which is the infinite itself, Kavyachol. And that's the tikkun to Korach, the mesech, the chirik, the recognition that there is a tzimtzum that takes place between chachma and bina, between kiruv and richuk, between closeness and distance, but not because they're two separate experiences that are fundamentally different, as if proximity and closeness and goodness, all of those things are connection to Hashem, and all of the opposites and richuk are separation from Hashem. There is no separation from Hashem. Even separation is a way of connection. And nobody teaches us better than Rabbi Nachman ben Fega. Rabbi Nachman ben Fega, especially in his famous Igeres, in the second volume of Likutei Moharan, there's a letter. There's a petek that comes down to each and every yid who opens this book or knows the name Rabbi Nachman. And the Torah Memches, where Rabbi Nachman cultivates his vision, his light, the fullest expression in a particular way of the light of Ein Shem Yesh Ba'olam Klal. And that even in Yesh, a person can come to reveal that there's no such thing as Yesh, that even in distance, there's no such thing as distance. And it's always karve el nafshi Allah, and I'm always coming closer, because distance is just another framework of looking at the experience of being close. And Rabbi Nachman uses Lashonos, that when a person enters into Avodas Hashem, the way that the path appears to them, it appears to them as if they're being distanced. Shemarim lo hisrachkus, a person is pushed away. Benin meloy shemarchi kenoisa milamal, and a person seems to be pushed away. Rechoika, the osios of Korach. Ve'ein manichin osei klal lichanis ba'avodas Hashem, and it seems that a person cannot enter in for even a second into the service of God. But in truth, but in truth, all of the distance is also a way of coming close. Find Hashem in the distance itself. There's no place devoid of Hashem. Korach's Pagam was thinking that distance is removed from Hashem. The tikkun of Korach is coming to the awareness that it's machluklas l'shem shemayim and Moshe emes v'sarasa emes. The unlimited, the limited, all of it is expressive of a singular unity that continues to take shape in two different ways. That's the secret unity of Klal Yisrael, that it's Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad and Baruch Shem Kavod Malchus Olam Va'ed. That even when it comes to the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we come upon a split, which is the upper unity and the lower unity, because the fundamental unity can only emerge out of the apparent split between the unity itself, which is the secret of the brain, which is the secret of the left and right hemispheres, the secret of the mind and the heart. It's the secret of all things. But it's specifically through that process of distance and the distance that we feel in our lives sometimes, where we need to cultivate a tremendous strength. Hischazkas gadol ma'oid ma'oid, that double ma'oid of toiv ha'aretz ma'oid ma'oid, and ma'oid ma'oid havei shafar ruach, and gesher tzar ma'oid ma'oid. That doubled ma'od that comes about after the machlokas on the second day, to reveal that machlokas is also part of shalom. Kol yomai, as Rabbi Nachman says, gadalti bein hachachamim, in the machlokas, between chachamim, and the guf tova that I found there was shtika, that recognition that there's a unified whole that gives shape to both of these oppositional forces of closeness and distance, to reveal that distance is also a form of closeness. Not that, distance is also you're really close because you can see Hashem there. No, that you feel distant and it looks like distance, but even in the distance itself, there's a way of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Distance remains distance, but it's illuminated. It doesn't get cut away and added to the mix of what we understand as proximity. We're expanding the territories of our spiritual awareness. We're extending the limitations of the self to the degree that the limitations themselves and the vessels themselves become illuminated. And Rabbi Nachman says that when a person feels far, a person needs to strengthen themselves very much. Not to look at it, ignore it. Stop fighting against the distance and trying to beat it into submission so that it can feel close, but accept the distance. That all of the distance is in and of itself only an expression of closeness. And all of this has gone over all of the tzaddikim, as we've heard from them explicitly, that it seemed to them that God was completely removed from them and he turned away from them in the way that Korach must have felt. Because they saw, like Korach must have seen, that it's been so long since Hashem has looked at me, and I'm still far. And Korach in that place says, I need to be karov, I need to run into kirva, I need to deny the reality of richuk, and I need to run into kirva, which is the ispalig, and which is why he needed to take the place of Moshe Rabbeinu in his mind. But be'emes, what he missed out on is what Rabbi Nachman is explaining. And had I not found the strength, says Rabbi Nachman, or these tzaddikim didn't find the strength to be okay and to stand their ground there and to find Hashem in the richuk itself, they would have never found closeness afterwards. And they wouldn't have found the kirva hayasera that comes about after every richuk, that the bina is always perpetually driving a more intense expression of chachma, that the distance is always for the sake of revealing more closeness. V'haklal, and the general principle, ahuvi, my beloved, my brother, chazak va'ametz ma'od, strengthen yourself with strength and hold yourself strong and stand steadfastly with all of your strengths in your work, and not to pay attention to the distance that you feel. And if you feel very, very distant from God and it appears to you that you destroy things one after the other, worse and worse each and every moment, nevertheless, in spite of all of this, it's specifically a person like this who finds themselves in such distance, who can truly find closeness to Hashem. Why? Because kol tenua v'tenua shu menatek atzmei ma'at me'at min gashmiyusa u'pona l'Hashem yisbarach hu gedoyle v'yekera mo'ed mo'ed. Because every attempt to come closer from within a place of distance and uncovering the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu within the distance itself, and then moving from there, not running to closeness because I'm terrified that Hashem is not found in the distance, like Korach ve'edaso, but rather coming closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu because that's the natural desire of the inherent point at the heart of every neshama of Klal Yisrael. And to do it by way of being okay, of accepting the richuk, b'derech rechaika, rachik mimeni, az menachem eshav nafshi. As menachem eshav nafshi, specifically when I accept upon myself the reality of richuk. Even the most insignificant movement, that I remove myself from that stuckness. Had Korach understood the value of richuk, he would have understood that any step that he took from a place of richuk, which is the osios of his name, from the reality of the mesach the chirik, that tiny point of tzimtzum that separates up and down and unity and apparent disunity, then he would have understood that any tnua that he encountered was greater than anything that anybody else in existence could have done. But instead, he felt that the only way to find God is in closeness. And this is going to be the birth of simcha, the simcha of Moshe Rabbeinu, of Moshe Emes v'tzarasei Emes, who understands that he's equally close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, bein beratzon, bein mishmad, bein be'elyonim, bein betachtonim, above, below, lo yada ish es kiraso, below it appears it's above it appears it's below. Both positions on the bipolar stretch of existence are now revealed to be in the service of God. And a person will find themselves in a perpetual state of simcha, when I'm connected and when I'm disconnected. Because when I'm disconnected, I'm still connected. Ki atzvus mazik moed moed. Because the opposite of sadness that drives Korach to deny the presence of God in that place. And a person should know that immediately, once a person has this awareness, then falling back into the old way of thinking is destructive. We cannot go back to a place where we feel that richuk is a place of being distant from Hashem. The only job that we have when we find ourselves in richuk is not allowing ourselves to let go of the basic principles, behaviors, values, ethics that we maintain for ourselves at our very best. It doesn't matter where my mind is at. Let my body do the work. Let me be in that place of richuk. And as long as I am ensuring that I'm not falling further down by way of valuing that place of distance, but rather I'm cultivating the awareness that Hashem is here also. And achen ata kel mistater, and yes, you are a God who conceals himself in richuk. Only then can I come to realize that Hashem is also the source of the salvation and the closeness as well. Because if I could only find God in closeness, then I can't even find God in a state of closeness. Because my relationship to my understanding of God is contingent upon Hashem's revelation, which means that it's not a true essential unity. The true essential unity is one that is independent of any conditions, including our proximity to what we feel is the goal. Whether I am close or whether I am far, bein bekarov, bein berachok, shalom, shalom, lerachok, ulakarov, that the doubled shalom, the sar shalom, the secret of the shalom of Chacham and the shalom of Bina, and the yichud between the two of them, and the yichud of the shalom of Mashiach ben Yosef and the shalom of Mashiach ben David, and the elevation of the shalom of the distance and the shalom of the close, that's where we're going to come to the depth of a shalom that can only come about by way of machlokas. Because if there was only an original shalom without machlokas, and we didn't live in the split screen of kirva and richuk, so then we would only have a standard form of shalom. But once we descend down into that split place of experience, but not like Korach, God forbid, thought, but as we understand that distance is also a way of connecting to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, there we come through the machlokas and the secret of machlokas l'shem shemayim, and we come to the deep secret of shalom, shalom l'rachuk l'karov. Shalom, shalom, a doubled shalom, a modim in the Shmona Esrei and a modim derabanan. I thank you, Hashem, for what you've done, and I thank you, Hashem, for what you're going to do. Secret of emunah and bitachon, of yichud ilah and yichud tata. In doim lecha ein an aruch. The Golgalta and the Moichas Timah. Be'ezras Hashem, through this awareness of the cultivation of the presence of God, specifically within Richuk, which are the osios of Korach, and the same osios as Chirik, which is the secret of the Mesach the Chirik, and the necessity of Tzimtzum, so that it can come to mend the Tzimtzum from within itself, rather than functioning in the externality of the Tzimtzum that seems to make a real fundamental split between presence and absence. I come to the awareness of that everything is always already present, simply concealed, and I'm perpetually revealing more and more of my attempt to come closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, while accepting the fact that there will always be an irreducible element of richuk, in the sense that kedushasi l'maala mikdushaseichem, and I'll never be in a state of fully alignment with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the best that I can do is come to a place of shivisi Hashem l'negdi tamid, of hashva satsura, of coming to find the shivayon between above and below, between closeness and distance, thereby elevating, doubling, expanding the territory of my spiritual life, and finding illumination in the places that are apparently devoid of it. Be'ezras Hashem.